You are listening to the Chasing PRs podcast. Today, we dive into the science behind the common suggestion of running slow and explain why incorporating slow running into your training is crucial for improving your performance and reducing the risk of injury. So, stay tuned.
Hi, we are your hosts, Rochelle Weeks and Diego Alcubierre. And with over 20 years of combined experience in coaching and physiotherapy, we created this podcast to help everyday runners who want to make the most out of their training and achieve new personal records while managing work, family, and life outside running. Welcome.
Welcome to another episode of Chasing PRs. I am Diego.
I'm Rochelle.
And welcome back to another episode. We have a very interesting episode today, I think.
I spend most of my days talking about this topic at work with runners.
And I think we're going to try to do it in a different way because you always hear that you need to do it, right? You need to run slow to run faster. But I haven't heard a lot of people talking about why that's important. And I think when runners understand, when I understand the why of things, it clicked in my brain, and you listen to it and you pay attention.
You need the theory. Yeah, you need to understand why. It's like if I just throw exercises at a patient and don't explain that there's a reason for them. Like these exercises are going to help this, and it's going to get rid of your hip pain, and you're going to be able to run faster. If I'm just like, go do these glute bridges, and I don't explain why, they're going to be like, nah.
Yeah, you don't do it. If you don't understand why, you don't do it. So that's our goal with today's episode. So, but before we start, we want to break the Chasing PRs in two. We're going to do one right now and one at the end of the episode.
The Chasing Sprints.
I didn't say Chasing Sprints.
Chasing PRs.
Chasing PRs, okay. Yeah.
We could split the podcast into as well.
Chasing Sprints, sorry, yeah. So, I want to ask you a question. If you run faster, if you train faster, you become a faster runner. Easy peasy or no?
No.
No? Okay. If you do your speed sessions faster, do you become a faster runner?
Yes.
Yes. Better question.
Yes.
So if I use my Alpha Flies or my Vapor Flies or any kind of super shoe that allows me to train faster my speed sessions, in theory, I become a faster runner.
That makes sense.
That makes sense. So there's a group of researchers that had this question in their minds and did a test. They did a test with 12 runners doing a long interval session, one with Vapor Flies and one with normal shoes. I couldn't find inside the research what the normal shoes were.
Just no carbon plate.
Exactly. So regular
stack height, yeah.
And they did 5 times 1,000 meters with 90 seconds recovery period with each. They trained with one pair 1 week, and 7 days later, they trained with the other pair. They didn't know. It was like randomized, right? Some of them trained before with the Vaporfly, some of them trained before with the normal ones, and stuff like that. And they found that in these long interval training sessions, their performance improved 2.4% with similar running power, heart rate, and neuromuscular fatigue. So just because they changed their shoes, they trained 2% faster with the same effort and body stress to that. So in theory, that will help you to become a better runner.
Yeah, that
or
makes
a faster
sense.
runner during race. So I just think it's very, very interesting because super shoes are expensive, right? So most of us just store them for racing. But if you have the possibility to train in those ones, in theory, you become a faster runner just because of that, because you're training, in this case, 2.4% faster.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's making me think about my own pair of super shoes because I've worn them for 2 5K races and a half marathon now. And they're the ones I was going to wear for the marathon in St. Lawrence. But now I'm like, maybe I should do some speed work in them when the footing is good.
Yeah.
Like
right
say in like April, hopefully. And then I'll get a new pair of super shoes for St. Lawrence. Hopefully my husband's not listening to this episode. It's like, you have enough shoes.
There's this guy I know called, terrible with names. I need to improve that in my personal life. But he's a 47-year-old 2:35 marathon runner. So he's fast, right? He's super fast. He, at one point, had the master American record for a 50K.
Oh, wow.
Just over 3 hours. So, and when I used Strava, and I follow him on Strava, he always trained in super shoes. So when I was reading this study yesterday, that I remind me about that, and it was, okay, that's super, super interesting. Like
all of his runs?
All of his runs.
Not just his speed ones, like every run he does.
Recovery runs.
Oh, wow.
I also have to say, when I've done recovery runs in super shoes, I have one that are 3 years old that I feel super tired today. I'm going to use them for a 10K run after a long run. And everything feels easier. Like, I think you recover from your long run and to the next one and to the next one way faster because I ran the same 10K just with way less effort and heart rate and perceived effort and neuromuscular fatigue and everything. So just sprinkling now and then your super shoes can make sense.
And it makes sense with that shoe episode we did where we talked about rotating your shoes. So if you have super shoes in the rotation once or twice a week, that adds to that's kind of complements that study that says rotating shoes reduces injury risk.
Yeah, everything starts to click. So different studies start to click about super shoes and shoes. So yeah, I think that's super interesting.
I like it.
That was the first chasing sprint. Okay, now let's talk about our week. How was your training week and what did you learn? What can you share with our listeners?
My training week was good. I feel like every week I'm like, I'm almost like afraid to say it. Like I'm going to jinx myself or something. But I did 65 kilometers last week and my long run was 25. So you'll be more happy with my percentage of the long run in
sure.
My weekly mileage. It wasn't like close to 50 this time.
Let's do that.
The 25 kilometer long run. And 38%. I had 38. Yeah.
That's
so better than 40, whatever it was last week. And I was running at my sister's cottage.
Okay.
So the footing was actually really good. There's all these like country roads and it was quite clear. So I didn't have to worry about
they were plowed?
sidewalks. Oh yeah. Like I ran on pavement for 25K.
Better than
some
here
of it
in
a
the
little
city.
bit wet, but like no snow, no ice. I didn't even wear my Gore-Tex shoes.
Okay, cool.
So it was really windy and a little bit hilly, but I didn't care because the footing was good. So yeah, last week was, and I did one interesting thing was I skipped track because we got a bunch of snow that day and I didn't want to risk any sort of injuries and I was in the mood to run fast. So I ran on the Woodway treadmill at work. And my hip flexors and my quads were so sore the next day, which never happens after track. Like if I'm sore, it's always going to be my hamstrings usually or my calves. And I was thinking about it, like, why is that so sore? And I was talking to one of the strength coaches at work and he pointed out like on a treadmill, you're trying to keep up with the treadmill. So you're like swinging your leg ahead to like catch it.
Okay.
Whereas when you're outside, you're like pushing the ground back and away a little bit more. And I think that makes sense because I've never been sore in my hip flexors and quads after track.
That's very interesting.
That just doesn't happen.
Yeah. Okay, that's really interesting.
Anyway, yeah. So we'll see if that happens again. Next time I'm on the treadmill, I'm going to try to really focus on that propulsive phase and see if the same thing happens.
Interesting. Yeah. That a lot of people ask me, can I train on the treadmill all the time? I always say yes and no. You can, but the effort of being outside. And I'm training one guy to run the San Francisco half marathon. And I was like, San Francisco, it's going to be hilly. So try to get outside to run on those hills primarily for his case. But he was like, but I live in downtown. So every block it's a light and I have to stop and stop and stop and stop. So that's what I prefer to do it on the treadmill. But I was like, at least once a week, try to go outside, your long runs, your speed sessions, just to get used to. And I think I never thought of what you said, but it's super interesting.
Yeah. And the treadmill, like you can practice hills on the treadmill, but you can't practice going down unless you have a fancy one that has a decline. And your body needs to be able to shock absorb on the descents.
Totally.
Yeah.
Perfect.
How was your week?
It was interesting. Now, I hit my mileage, 70K. But on Thursday, we did track in a 400 meters straight. Out and back, out and back, out and back, out and back. It was good, but my long run was super difficult. I don't know why.
Did you do Saturday or Sunday?
Saturday.
Saturday.
I always do Saturday.
Okay.
But I don't know. I felt like shit
Yeah.
the whole time.
It just didn't feel
Yeah,
good.
it was like 3 kilometers in. I was like,
Hmm.
I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. I don't
And
wanna
what
do
was the
this.
length of your long run?
21K.
21.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was. I've been doing this exact training for the past 6 weeks, and this week it felt awful. I had the same breakfast. Everything was the same. I don't know why.
Did you push track more than normal, or was that the same as well? Like that hard interval and then only a day between? Or was that normal for you?
No, it's
Yeah,
it's
that's
normal.
strange.
It's strange, but I had two options when I was running. One, stop,
Yeah.
and come back home. But the other thing is no. When I took it like a more like a mental training than a physical training. It was like I'm gonna feel like shit during a race, during a marathon. So better to start training that part of running uncomfortable and when I'm not feeling awesome. And I did. I finished my long run. I didn't finish 21K because I was running super slow, like 20 seconds per kilometer slower than my regular long runs. I was just not feeling it. So I ended up doing the time.
That's smart.
So usually I run 21K during training between 135 and 140, 1 hour and 40 minutes. So I stopped at 140. It was like 19 point, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, still enough for a long run. Like
Exactly.
A good distance.
So I got the time in, not the distance this time, but I took it like a mental training.
So if you're not injured, like it's not like your knee hurt, you push through anyway. So mentally you train it. And I feel like as long as every long run is not like that, like if all of a sudden you're like, God, every time I run lately, I feel like
training
crap.
or something.
That's a big message. But sometimes there's just crappy runs for no reason. It's like you sleep good, you eat well, everything's firing, and then other times you'll sleep terribly and not have a good breakfast and maybe have a beer the night before or something, and then you go have this stellar run and it's like, where did that come from?
Yeah, and now that I just mentioned it, like how I assessed the run, it was the next day. I had 13K on Sunday, and I was like, if I feel like shit on Sunday, I need to do something, right? Something is not right. But I felt awesome. So
you're okay.
Yeah. So it was just one crappy day that I took like a mental.
Yeah. They're annoying, but they happen. And usually I find after a bad day, a good one's coming. Hopefully. As long as you're not overtraining or getting sick or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was my week. So 2 interesting learnings there. Your treadmill one.
Yeah.
Very interesting. I have to say, like the treadmill you run in, it's like a Ferrari of treadmills.
So nice. We're actually getting rid of our treadmill in our basement because I don't use it anymore because I love the one at work so much. It's just a Woodway, but it's not just a Woodway. That's a stupid comment. It's really nice. Yeah.
I've trained in that one once, and it's a different experience than any other treadmill. And the other one, okay, you're gonna have crappy days. Mm-hmm. It's okay as long as it's not a consistent thing in your training.
Yeah.
Perfect. So let's talk about running slow, and we're gonna start talking about what does running slow means. It's going to be, there are a few guidelines that you can follow. Mm-hmm. But the most important part we're going to build into it, it's why, right? Why do you need to train slow? So for you, there are 3-4 ways how you can assess if you're running slow. You want to talk about the first one?
Yeah, heart rate is probably one of the most common ones, I think. And sometimes runners get a little bit too obsessed with it, especially, so there's a couple things with heart rate. So you can look at your heart rate and decide, where you're aiming between 130, 140, 145 beats per minute. But I feel like unless you go into a lab and get like your max heart rate tested and your VO2 max tested, it's not always accurate to just follow heart rate because a lot of people use that 220 minus your age, which is wrong for a lot of people. Like it's kind of an average, but there's a lot of outliers there. So the heart rate doesn't always work. And especially like you've said, winter, like my heart rate's so messed up lately. I was doing a 6-minute pace the other day, which is very, very relaxed and easy for me. And then my watch is like 72-hour recovery.
Yeah.
Because my heart rate was like 170, 175, which it doesn't even hit for a 5K race in the summer. Yeah. But I also don't have a chest strap, or I have one, but I just don't like using it because I find it annoying. So it's just my watch and, gloves and all the winter gear just kind of messes it up. So I think some people, if you really get into it and you learn how to do it and you get an actual heart rate max test, either in a lab or on your own, then maybe you can go by heart rate. But a lot of times I just don't find it super accurate.
Yeah. I think, yeah, but over time you learn, right? If you, I have like 3 different watches, and all of them tell me different things about my heart rate, or they're not very consistent. All of them Garmin, but over time you start to learn what like heart rate is your easy pace. When you train in the heat, in the morning, at night, in the cold, humid, tired, not tired, rested, all of the different kind of external factors that can affect your heart rate, you start to get a feel of what your a good easy heart rate is. For example, for me, is like if I'm below 150 beats per minute, I know I'm in a good easy run pace. Unless it's super slushy or super cold, that I have like 3 or 4 layers on me and stuff like that. I already know if I'm below 150, I'm in a good pace. And 150 sometimes means running for 30 minutes per kilometer, and sometimes it means running at 20 minutes per kilometer. Depends on all of those factors that I just mentioned. But if I stay below there, I'm good. I know like the most common one is the talking test, right? Yeah. If you can have an easy conversation with someone, I was read like memorize like a poem or something like that you can recite and be consistent with the words and the pace of what you're saying. It's a good way to measure it. The only thing that I found wrong with that is that when I've done this with runners, most of them think they're talking easily when they're not talking easily.
I was just thinking the same thing. Just because they can speak, they think, I'm good. But they're huffing and puffing.
See, exactly. So there's no perfect answer to how to assess if you are running slow, but try different things. And the first 2 are with your heart rate, and the other one is like an easy talk. And I think running with a partner can be a way better way of, you are not talking easily, or you are talking easily.
When I run and do my long runs, I typically aim for like a 5:45 minute per kilometer pace. And that really feels relaxed and easy, and I can chat away. But when in the fall, between when our races were done in the fall and Christmas, with our track, we were just kind of doing moderate tempo type runs around Barrhaven. And I was running with the group at like a 4:55 pace talking.
Yeah.
But that's not my easy pace. Like 4:55 is not my relaxed, comfortable, easy pace. But I was talking and having conversation. So I think you're right. Like that key is it's got to be an easy flowing conversation. Like you're not huffing and puffing in between words and sentences.
Yeah. So the best way there is to train with someone.
Yeah.
That can assess, because we're terrible at doing that. We always think that we are running easy when sometimes we're running super hard. But I can talk right now, and I can tell you this thing. That's not talking easy.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not comfortable at all.
What other ways can people do to know if they're running easy?
I like the breathing in and out through your nose, as long as, I said this to someone the other day. So basically for like 30 to 60 seconds, you can close your mouth and try to breathe through your nose. You don't need to do it the whole run. But in theory, if you can't do that, you're running too fast.
Okay.
But in the winter, people get really runny noses. So I said this to a woman, and she was like, oh my God, I can't do that. I'm like blowing my nose every 5 minutes when I run outside. So if your nose is clear and you can normally breathe through it, no problem, then that's a good test. If that doesn't work, I do like that one. But if that doesn't work, I really like, from the Jack Daniels book, the breath to step count.
Okay.
So breathing in for 3 steps and out for 3 steps. And if you find you're breathing in for 2 steps and out for 2 steps, you're probably going a little bit too quick. The only thing there is it really depends on your cadence. So if you get someone who's 6'4" and they're doing like a 160, 155 step per minute, then that might not be super accurate. They might be like almost ready to pass out doing a 3 and 3. Yeah, exactly. So it again, these are a list of things you can try and If you can't breathe through your nose, if you can't talk easily, if you're doing 2 and 2, if your heart rate's 160,
You're not running.
all signs are saying
I
slow
think
down.
it's going to be easier to know if you are running fast than I know it sounds counterintuitive or stupid, but it's easy to know if you're running fast, but it's not that easy to know if you're running easy.
Yeah, I always say to people, just because you're not running fast doesn't mean you're running easy.
Okay.
Like
You
I think
explained it way before than
I think people say like, oh yeah, I think that's easy. And it's just, they're not going all out. So they're like, yeah, that's easy.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
if you can slow down comfortably, do it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the next one is the VDOT calculator, right? You put in a recent fast time or your fastest time recently. It can be a mile, a 5K, a lot of different numbers. And that it will give you, based on that time, a range of your pace on easy runs.
Yeah. I've used that a lot at work since doing the Jack Daniels course. And it's just the app VDOT calculator.
Yeah.
So and it's, the only tricky thing is sometimes people don't have a recent race that they've done. And if they're not ready to go do a time trial, it can be tricky. But sometimes they'll say, if you're injury free and in good footing, how fast could you do 5K today? And an experienced runner will usually know that answer. And then I'll put it in and say, well, this is your easy pace range. And I'll usually encourage people to go to the slower end of it. So mine, based on my half marathon, mine's 5:15 to 5:45.
Okay.
And I go towards the slower end of it because running slower is usually better as long as it feels natural.
Totally. Yeah, I use that calculator a lot also.
Yeah.
I think one of the best ways to know in my opinion, to get the right number at the right time with that calculator is that doing that 6-minute test that we've talked a lot about here. And it's almost a mile for a lot of people, a little more than a mile for a few people. But that gives you your fitness today.
Yeah,
right?
I like that.
And a 6-minute test is not that hard on your body. It's just 6 minutes going as fast as you can. And it gives you a range. Now, the interesting and cool thing here is when everything starts to click. What do I mean? If you go into the VDOT calculator and you put in your time, right? And it says you're 5:15 and 5:45 seconds.
Yeah.
Right? So you stay in that zone, in pace zone, and you look at your watch and you're in zone 2, and you can breathe 3 times through your nose, or do the three times, or you can do the 1 minute through your nose. If all those 3-4 things start to click, okay, now I'm pretty certain that I'm running at an easy pace.
Yeah.
So I usually use the VDOT pace with my watch, and that's if both of them are in sync, to say it somehow, okay, I'm running easy. And it's usually around 150 beats per minute. I've running for a lot of years, so I know that number. If it's too hot or too cold, I can adjust it. But yeah, if there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different ways that we just talked about how you can run easily. If 2 or 3 match, you are doing a great job.
Yeah, you're doing okay.
Yeah, perfect. So, okay, let's start running easy. I'm going to ask you a question, and you're going to know the answer, but it's just so people can think about it. Is a mile race the same thing aerobically as a marathon race?
Is a mile the same thing as aerobic? No.
No? Yes, a little. Both of them are aerobic races.
Yes. Okay, yeah. So the mile's not anaerobic.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
I need to learn to figure out my questions better. But my point is that people think that because they're training for a mile or a marathon, their training should be completely different. It's going to be different. But all the races in between those are aerobic races. So that's why we need to train our aerobic systems.
Yeah.
And that's one of the main reasons we need to run easy, because that's the main way to train your aerobic system. Now, what happens when you run fast, right? Because I don't know if it happens to you, but if you are doing a base mileage, right, or a base training program towards your big race, and you run easy all the time, easy, the second or the week that you start putting in some speed work, a few weeks later, you start to feel the difference, right? You start to feel, I'm getting fast. This is working. So why not to run fast all the time? Because our bodies love to run If we run fast, we improve faster than running slow. Why not run fast all the time?
Yeah, I feel like runners have such a hard time getting this concept that if you want to run faster, you don't just run faster every single day. Run as fast as you can. So typically, one of the, probably arguably the most important thing to becoming a strong, I would say long distance runner, but even as you said, the mile short distance runners, is to have a high volume of running. Like how much can you run in a week? And you build this up gradually so you don't get injured, and you think about balancing work and family life, but what's the total weekly volume you can do in a week? And the higher that is, usually the better you're going to be as a runner, as long as you're recovering from it all properly. But if you're running too fast, that amount of weekly volume you can do is going to be limited, because you'll run hard on a Monday and then Tuesday you're a bit sore. So maybe you were going to do 10K, but you only do 5, and so on. So throughout the week, maybe you can only do 40 to 50 kilometers a week because you're running moderate to fast all the time. Whereas if you slow down 80% of the mileage, now all of a sudden 80K, 90K a week feels good. So you can just run more if you slow down.
And that's the number one way to run faster and longer. It's to run more.
Yeah.
Right. But, and that's the why. The reason that why you need to run slow is so you are able to run more while reducing your risk of getting injured.
Yeah.
Because if I were of any runner is able to run at 5K pace, 100 miles or kilometers a week, he's going to be a faster runner than the guy that is running slow. But it's not sustainable.
Yeah.
You're going to get injured.
Yeah.
Eventually. Even if you run slow, let's be honest, you can get injured. It's not
especially if you crank up. If you listen to this podcast and you're like, okay, they told me I have to run more. I do 30K a week. I'm going to do 50 next week. You're heading for
too
trouble.
much, too soon, too fast, right? It's like the tools of getting injured. You always say that.
And I like probably 80% of my caseload is runners who are usually injured. And in the beginning, I'll ask, what do you like to do for weekly volume? What do you like to do for races? What are some of your PRs? Oh, by the way, what's your easy pace? And often the easy pace is way too close to their pace for a half marathon or their pace for a marathon. And so part of the puzzle of them coming in injured is usually that they're just not slowing down. Because when you're pushing yourself that hard, that regularly, you just ramp up your injury risk.
Yeah, you're running 80K weeks, or that's a 50 miles weeks at half marathon pace. Your risk of injury is way higher. And I also like to tell people that we have a lot of systems, but let's say we have two: the cardiovascular system and your musculoskeletal.
Musculoskeletal.
Thank
you. That's a mouthful.
Yes, I struggled with that word a lot. The point here is that your aerobic system improves way faster than the other system.
Yeah.
So you start to feel fast, right? Because, okay, I'm running this low and I'm feeling way better than 4 weeks ago or 6 weeks ago or a week ago. My long run this week is feeling way better than last week. So I'm going to push the pace. I can do it. But your muscles and your bones and your soft tissue, your joints, your fascia doesn't develop as fast as your aerobic system. So that's one, or your cardiovascular system. That's one of the main reasons you need to run slow, to give time to your bones. And I'm not going to say that word again. You know that system I'm talking about.
Yeah.
To catch up with your cardiovascular system. So that's another reason that why we don't run at 5K pace or half marathon pace all the time. It's just to give time to our other system to catch up to our cardiovascular.
Yeah. And I think it's hard because the heart and lungs are ready to go. They're like, come on. And you feel like you could do it. Yep. Like you get out there and you're like, I could go fast today. But then eventually the muscles, the tendons, things just start to kind of fall apart a little bit. And I always say to people, just because you could do something doesn't mean you should. So when you're out for a run and you're feeling really good, like on a Wednesday mornings, I run before I go to work, and it's kind of like my happy place in the week. And they always feel great because I'm out kind of running alone, listening to music or podcasts, and I'll find myself picking up the pace a bit. And I always say to runners, like, remember the purpose of every run. Because the run Wednesday, the purpose is not to run fast. it's to get a midweek long run in for me. And I run fast Thursday. So if I pick up my pace on that Wednesday
Just because
morning
you're
run,
feeling great.
yeah, then Thursday, maybe I could have held a 4:15 pace for intervals, but now I'm doing a 4:20, 4:25 because I'm tired from Wednesday. So now I'm kind of stuck in that, like, I'm not doing 80-20.
And that's the next thing. Going easy on your easy runs allow you to go fast on your fast runs.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the secret. Doing the paces you need to do easy and the paces you need to do fast.
Yeah.
And you have mentioned a few times the 80-20. What's the goal of the 80-20? Because if we are telling you you need to run slow to run more, we're also telling you that the faster you run, the more you improve.
Yeah.
So that's where, you know the name of the guy that invented this 80-20.
Yeah. Arthur Lydiard. He's from New Zealand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not, as always, it's not a perfect formula. Maybe you can go a little more. Maybe you need to go a little less if you're getting a lot of injured. But that ratio of 80% slow and 20% fast allow you to start to build mileage that we just mentioned that it's one of the best ways to improve as a runner. But also sprinkle like 20%. Do 20% fast because your body loves when you run fast, that your mitochondria, your fast twitches, your cardiovascular system, it's on top and everything is okay. I need to improve because we're running fast and I'm going to become a better body to this runner. That's like the best ratio over years. And that coach found that it's the perfect one, the best one to do fast and easy.
Yeah. It's really, if anybody wants to read more on the topic, the 80-20 book by Matt Fitzgerald is just excellent. But in one of the chapters in that book, he talks about Arthur Lydiard. And in the 1940s, 1950s, most of the elite runners around the world were doing hard interval sessions regularly, like mostly hard running, like probably 90-10, like 90% was hard. And basically Arthur Lydiard would just started experimenting on himself. He was a rugby player from New Zealand. And he started running more and more and more easy volume. He got up to like 250 miles a week.
Wow.
At one point, which he realized was not beneficial. So he pulled it back.
But he was able
and
to.
He was able to do that. He found his sweet spot was 120 miles a week, which is way more than most people can do if they work. But then he started sprinkling in the speed and he found it improved his running. Then he started coaching runners. And by 1960 in Rome at the Olympics, New Zealand took home 3 running medals, which is ridiculous because New Zealand's
has
tiny.
like a 2 million population.
It's like going against the United States and the UK and Germany. Like it was just insane that they were able to do that. But it was this, everybody else was still doing the full interval training method, whereas the Lydiard method had more of this really super high volume of easy training sprinkled with some speed.
Yep.
And eventually by like the 90s, anybody who wasn't doing 80-20 just wasn't making it in the world stage. They weren't able to do it, or they were getting injured and couldn't make it there because they were hurt.
Cool.
Yeah.
5 million people in New Zealand.
5 million. Oh,
compared
so
to
not so tiny.
It's 300 million in the US.
Okay, yeah. So for them to get 3 medals and beat,
That's a lot, right?
Yeah.
I think Germany is like 90 million people.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a small country.
It is small.
Compared to the big ones.
Yeah, I just thought it was smaller than that.
it looks small in the map.
Yeah.
But yeah, so let's do some kind of conclusion because we talk a lot. We know we talk a lot. But okay, so why do runners need to run slow 80% of the time?
I would say the main thing is to increase their volume.
Yeah.
So they can become a better runner with less injury risks.
Exactly. And because we are training our aerobic system and all the races we do, except if you run 400 or 800 meters, that's not your case. But all of us regular runners that don't run track, it's aerobic races, right? But why 80 and 20? Because we need to run fast also to stress different systems in our body.
Yeah.
Right. So that's why 80% of your runs need to be slow, around 80%. Don't get obsessed with it. Oh no, I didn't get.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be exact.
And I have to say, I'm an engineer, right? So I do a lot of math and numbers, just because I like it.
Yeah.
It's really hard to get to that 20%. It's really hard. I think most runners don't get to that 20%. Why? Because it's not your full workout. For example, I'm gonna give a very try to give an easy example. If you run 100 kilometers a week, right? You need to run 20 kilometers fast. Those are a lot of intervals. Or if you run, you're running 65, right?
Yeah.
Let's do that math super quickly. So if you're running 65 kilometers a week, you need to do 13 kilometers fast.
Yeah.
Do you think you're doing?
No, definitely not.
No.
I'm typically doing 6 to 8 fast.
6 to 8. So it's hard to get to that number, and don't get obsessed with it, because if you are not used to it and suddenly you start, in your case, from 6 to 8 kilometers fast, you jump to 13, what's going to happen? You're going to get injured, right? Or your chances of getting injured are going to increase. So it's hard. I think that's one of the main reasons people can get a coach, or it's beneficial to get a coach, because they know that those numbers, right? The training plans are created to get those 80-20. And if you are not there, they're going to build you to go to that number. So, but yeah, the main reason, or the main learning about this episode, is you need to run slow to increase your mileage while reducing your chances of getting injured.
Yeah. And I think just to add to the 80-20, a lot of runners have this theory that no matter how many days a week they're running, they have to do 2 speed sessions and 1 long run.
Okay.
And then so those are the 3 main runs. And then if you get a couple extra runs in, great. But they're doing like 4 runs a week. I have so many runners come in doing this. 4 runs a week. 1 of them's a long run, 1's tempo, 1's intervals, 1 easy run. That's not 80-20. And so when I say to them, I want to get rid of one of your speed sessions, they're like, well, I need to do speed. I'm doing a 5K, I'm doing a 10K, I need to do speed.
But you're here injured.
And it's like, well, you either need to run more, so your 2 speed sessions a week make up 20% of your weekly mileage, or you need to drop a speed session and you're injured, so let's not run more, let's just drop a speed. And when I did Boston, I ran, my Strava said 133 for a PR for a half. My Boston official result, because I apparently zigzag, was 134. But that was like, I did a 4:25 pace for that race.
Okay.
And I only did 1 speed session at the track for all of that training. I ran 6 days a week. 5 was easy, 5:45 pace, weekly or minutes per kilometer. And 1 of the speed sessions, that's all I did. And it felt fine to do that 4:25. And I think because my weekly mileage got up to 70, I was able to go out at a 4:25 because of the track sessions. It felt comfortable.
Yeah.
Because I had done track sessions at like
Way
under
faster.
4-minute pace.
Yeah, exactly.
But I was able to hold the 4:25 because the weekly mileage I did was 70K. And the only reason I could do 70K was because I was doing it easy.
Yeah, not just your cardiovascular system, the other system.
Musculoskeletal.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Was ready to run that fast, and you didn't get injured. And you have another interesting example about your running easy. That your half marathon pace training at 5 minutes per kilometer.
Yes, my old half marathon pace. This was when I lived in Labrador, and I was trying to do a 1:45 half, which was 5-minute pace. And I was doing all of my runs at 5-minute pace. And I used to do the long run on a Sunday, and I wouldn't run for like 2 days because I just was exhausted. And then I would do 5-minute pace Wednesday. I would do intervals Thursday, 5-minute pace Friday, Saturday.
Your easy pace was your half marathon ideal pace, and you weren't there.
And no, not at all. And like that, sure, 5 minute per kilometer is easy for some people. Like for you, you've got a 2:54 marathon or whatever it is. 5-minute pace for you is easy. For me, that's not my easy pace. Everybody's easy pace is different. And
not today, and less when you were trying to do a 1:45.
Yeah. I was not nearly, like my PR at that point was 1:50, I think, for a half marathon.
Yeah.
And so during the race, I did a 2-week taper. I felt like crap. It felt awful. I blew up. It was terrible. It was like one of the worst races I've ever done. And now I'm doing 5:45 pace, enjoying my runs way more because it's just nice to go slow. And I'm running almost 20 minutes faster.
According to who, is nice to run slow.
I love it.
I'm joking.
Some people hate it. I feel like it's something you need to learn. Like runners are like, I can't run that slow. And I get runners, like I do the VDOT calculator. I'm like, ooh, you're doing like a 5:15 pace. You should really try to do like 5:45. Oh my God, I can't run that slow. And I'm like, if Eliud Kipchoge can run 5:45, 6-minute pace, you can too. You just don't want to.
Exactly.
Everybody can run slower.
You have to. You want to become a better runner.
Yeah.
So okay, let's not circle around the same.
We could talk about it all day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But hopefully you learn something. The other interesting thing I just remember is like we gave you 5 different things you can do to assess if you are running slow. If 2 or 3 start to click or be in accordance, you are doing a great job.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So let's do the runner of the week.
Ray Zahab.
Who is Ray Zahab?
He is a local endurance athlete. He's lives in Quebec in Canada. I believe he's over in Gatineau.
Yeah.
And he's an ultra marathoner and an extreme adventurer. And he travels all over the place doing talks and motivational speaking. He actually went to Labrador and came for the Trapline Marathon, was our guest runner a few years back. But he is the runner of the week because he's an amazing runner. He's inspirational. He's the father of 2 girls, but he's been recently diagnosed with cancer, with lymphoma. And after his 4th round of chemo, he's going to the Arctic because that's what Ray does.
Yeah, he's impressive. I remember the first time I came into Ottawa and tell people that I was a runner. Do you know Ray Zahab? Do you know? Everyone knows that guy. He's awesome. He also has this foundation called Possible to Impossible. Well, Impossible to Possible.
Yeah.
It's the other way around. Impossible to Possible. And he takes kids, like teenagers, to incredible adventures around the world. And it's free for the kids. So it's really cool. But yeah, I'm just gonna tell you like just 2 of his amazing accomplishments. Or
there's so many.
Yeah.
Follow him on Instagram and Facebook because you'll see more there. But yeah.
He crossed in 2011 the Atacama Desert in Chile. I'm going to say it in Spanish and English.
Okay.
In English is Chile. In Spanish is Chile. But it was 1,200 kilometers by himself. With very little outside support. He had to procure his own water and his fueling and all of that. And I think that's impressive. In the middle of the desert, super hot. The other one is the exact opposite. He traveled or ran, walked, hiked, snowshoed to the South Pole with 2 of his friends, 1,130 kilometers from Hercules Inlet. I had to research what the heck Hercules Inlet is, but it's like a very famous place where people start expeditions in the South Pole. You are already in the South Pole, but they trekked to the South Pole in a world record time. And the interesting thing is that daily they did like a live Zoom, live thing with students around the world. So he's the athlete of the week because he is the epitome of chasing sprints. He's a super accomplished runner, and he's an awesome dad from what I know in Instagram and Facebook. And I talked to him like twice. An awesome person. Like he's being able to balance life and extreme PRs.
Yeah. And he's balancing work, family life, running, and cancer
right now.
Which is just
and 10 days after his last chemo, he's going to the South Pole Arctic, the Arctic, to another expedition. So yeah,
he's not stopping anytime soon.
Yeah, that's our runner of the week, Ray Zahab. And we did the first chasing sprint at the beginning of the episode. Let's do the second chasing sprint. I know you're gonna love to sing.
Lucia Stafford. She's she's incredible to follow her career. She just did the indoor 1,000 meter, and she broke the North American record and was the 9th fastest woman ever for the 1,000 meter indoor. She did 2:33.75.
Yeah.
And so she just, and everything, it's funny, everybody's saying she smashed the indoor record. Some people might think it's only 4 seconds. Like to us long distance runners, it's 4 seconds, but over 1,000 meters, that's massive to lower it by 4 seconds.
That's a few meters.
Yeah. Yeah,
Lisa.
she just, she's
the
amazing.
record was 2:37. Now it's 2:33.
Yeah.
And there's another interesting fact here. In the last 15 years, only 2 women have run faster than her the 1,000 meters indoors.
Yeah.
One is Olympic silver medalist Laura Muir. She has a podcast.
Does she really?
Yeah.
She has a podcast. I follow her. She's a UK runner and she's amazing.
She has a really interesting podcast.
Okay.
And the world record holder of the 1,500 meters, I'm going to say this name terribly, Gensebi Dibaba.
So these are the only 2 women who have run faster than Lucia.
Yeah.
In the last 15 years.
In the last 15 years. So that's really impressive and awesome to be it's the beginning of the season for the track people.
Oh, for her to be going that fast. She did Hamilton in November, at the 5K in Hamilton, and she almost broke the Canadian record in her debut 5K. 5K is not even her specialty. It's not her distance.
It's like a mile, 1,500.
She was 4 seconds off the Canadian record. So imagine if she actually switched her focus, because I'm sure the speed work you do for a 1,000-meter race is like crazy different from what you're going to do for 5K.
Yeah, for sure.
But I really hope she plans to focus on the 5K because it'd be really cool to see her break that record.
Yeah, I know. Maybe, I don't know. It will be cool.
Yeah.
If Kipchoge went from 5K to a marathon, she can go from 1,500 to 5K.
To 5K. Yeah, I love it.
So, thank you for listening to another episode of Chasing PRs. Don't forget, we have the Instagram, Chasing PRs Podcast. If you want to join the Facebook group, just search for Chasing PRs there. And if you have any runner of the week that you want to suggest, we are always happy to receive new runners of the week that we don't know. Go to chasingprs.run. There's a web form there, so you can put all the information there. And thank you. Want to say anything else?
Yeah, tune in next week. We'll have another exciting topic to discuss.
Perfect. Thank you. Bye. Thank you for listening to this episode. If you love it, give it a share. Please consider subscribing to the show and leaving a rating and review on iTunes or Spotify. And visit chasingprs.run for all the latest episodes, get our free newsletter, and all the cool running stuff we have there. Thanks for joining.